All right. Well, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, we got this story here on China, and
Yeah.
the Chinese military fired aircraft carrier killer missiles into the South China Sea as a warning to the U.S. We have an article here from the South China Morning Post, and it just kind of details that China's carrying out some more significant, like naval war games and stuff in the South China Sea as a response to the U.S. actions there. So fill us in a little bit what's going on, Will.
Yeah. There were a couple things this week which I think like really do highlight just how dangerous and sort of provocative the U.S. military presence is in the South China Sea and the East China Sea, and generally right there in China's backyard. We've talked about this several times on Foreign Policy Focus, but all the naval and air deployments we have near China, we constantly are doing these so-called freedom of navigation missions, and the more properly named, I think, show of force missions to sort of antagonize the Chinese. And this week we had, two things sort of in that category that I think really do underline just how provocative and dangerous this can be. So on Tuesday, we had the Pentagon flying just one U-2 spy plane in China's coast. It's sort of like it's almost like their Gulf of Mexico or something, like really right there next to the Chinese territory. And that's where we have the spy plane flying, and no less in a restricted zone during a live fire exercise. Like, it's a very dangerous situation to have. Like, I mean, I think people can imagine what could happen if there was some kind of accidental shoot down or some kind of accidental, any kind of firing of missiles at each other, just how that could spiral out of control. Like, I think just like transiting, it wasn't doing a reconnaissance mission. But nonetheless, just on last Tuesday, we had several spy planes flying around Chinese territory near it. And the next day, that prompted this missile test where they tested one of their aircraft carrier killer missiles, and they shot them into the South China Sea. And they did that right around the Paracel Islands, which are like a disputed island chain that China and Vietnam and a few other countries claim. But the U.S. backs pretty much everyone else's claims against China. Like, they don't care who else. Like, they don't. I don't think they care who else gets it, as long as it's not the Chinese or Beijing. But a lot of people have been interpreting, myself included. I tend to think this missile test was meant to send some kind of message to Washington because of all these, show of force and freedom of navigation missions and all this other kind of stuff. And this all happened too during this big series of naval drills. The Chinese have been doing I think in 4 major regions all at once. They've been carrying out these naval drills, and it seems like those drills in general are intended to send some kind of message to the U.S. And then, to top this all off, on Friday, after the missile test and after the spy plane incident, the U.S. sent in a guided missile destroyer to the South China Sea, right near the Paracel Islands, where they did that missile test. And the U.S. of course claims where we're having like near misses and little we're buzzing Chinese aircraft carriers out there in the ocean. That is, I think you can imagine how the U.S. would respond if if the roles were reversed here, if China were doing this kind of stuff in the Gulf of Mexico, and just how the U.S. response would, just how panicked the U.S. response would be. And so I think you can then see how seriously China takes this stuff and sees it as a real, genuine threat. And I think that should worry all of us. If they're worried and they're seeing us as a threat, then that, I think, raises the level of risk they're out there in the South China Sea.
Right. Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense, Will, why China would see it that way and kind of where the current actions in the region have been leading us. I read this week that the U.S. was planning talks in October or September and October with Japan, India, and Australia, which is, quite, some significant states that essentially surround, China navally on 3 sides there. and are real,
I think a
other
lot. Yeah.
powers and, regional competitors to China. And so I'm sure that, this kind of action is going to make China feel increasingly threatened by the US.